Welcome everyone, my name is Brendan Snyder. Thank you for joining me. This is CD Collection. It's a special edition where I'm going to go through my Wounded Bird reissues. I've got 77 of these CDs here, and I'm going to pull out some of the rare and obscure ones. I've got 10 of these that I want to focus on with you guys. So this label is, released a whole host of different artists that I probably never would have known about if it hadn't been for them. So I'm very thankful for the artists that they have selected to reissue. And before I dive into that though, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please click the button. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things help support my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the video or you know someone that would, please share it, help get the word out that way too. I would also appreciate that. And of course, as I always say, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on all that's going on in the world of music, just like this with CD Collection and the review of Wounded Bird reissues, this special edition here. So the label itself, like many other reissue labels, also has classic bands. They reissued Blackfoot, Cheap Trick, Europe, and a whole host of other ones that are well known. But I wanted to also point out 5 reissues that they did that are no longer available by Wounded Bird, but are now available on the Rock Candy Records reissue label, which is an outstanding label. The first one up being Electric Angels, their 1990 debut. This one featured a young Ryan Roxie who goes on and plays with Alice Cooper. Fandango and their album Cadillac from 1980, which features Jolyn Turner. That was their final album. St. Paradise from 1979. This one here features Derek St. Holmes, of course coming from Ted Nugent. It's actually got a different album cover on the one that's from the Rock Candy Records version. Smashed Gladys from 1988, just some really good straight up glam metal, female fronted too. And then Steve Walsh, his debut solo album Schemer Dreamer from 1980. So those 5 there, I just wanted to point out that they are now in print through Rock Candy Records. These other ones though are either still in print by Wounded Bird or unfortunately out of print. But of course, we love that about rare albums and things of that nature. So first one up that I want to show you guys is Danny Joe Brown and the Danny Joe Brown Band from 1981. He was the lead vocalist for Molly Hatchet. And this album here, the cool thing about this one is it actually features Bobby Ingram on guitars, who goes on to play with Molly Hatchet. So now this is the only solo album that Danny Joe Brown made. He would later rejoin or reform Molly Hatchet in 1989 and bring in Bobby Ingram at that time. And they did record the fantastic Lightning Strikes Twice album in '89. Unfortunately, Bobby got sick shortly thereafter and was sick for a long time and passed away in 2005 at the age of 53. So that's the only one that we got by him. Next up is Backstreet Crawler, and they released 2 fantastic albums. This one here, which is called The Band Plays On from '75, and this one here, which is 2nd Street from 1976. And this band is famous for having Paul Kossoff with them on lead guitar, coming from the band Free with Paul Rogers, before he goes on to do Bad Company. And Backstreet Crawler, the reason that I was drawn into that of note, more than their guitar player being Paul Kossoff, was Terry Wilson Slesher on vocals. So I knew that he later went on and joined Geordie after Brian Johnson left that band to join AC/DC. But the other thing that I found of interesting note and why I wanted to hear these is he unsuccessfully tried out for Iron Maiden after Paul Di'Anno left the band. So I wanted to hear what would Iron Maiden have sounded like if this guy was fronting the band. And I often like to do that when I find out that a short list was made and they came down very close to joining a band and then ultimately didn't. I always kind of wonder the what if sort of a thing. So that's what drew me to that one. Buck Dharma and Flat Out from 1982. Of course, he is the vocalist and guitarist in Blue Oyster Cult. Cool thing is this one here actually features Neil Smith from the original Alice Cooper band playing drums on some of the songs and co-writing as well. Next we've got Badger and One Live Badger. This is a 1973 album, and it is live, as it says, featuring Tony Kaye on keyboards, who of course would play with Yes. And the band would make one studio album in 1974 called White Lady. Unfortunately, I'm still looking for it, and it has not been reissued by the Wounded Bird label. I wish that it would. Next, we have Crazy Horse, Loose from 1972, and as you would imagine, this is the backing band of Neil Young and Crazy Horse. This is that group. And so it features Billy Talbot on bass and vocals and Ralph Molina on drums and vocals, rounded out by some other guys for, keyboards and guitars and so forth. And so from 1971, this one here being their second one in 72, they have released 6 studio albums together. So they're not just a band that backs up Neil Young. Crazy Horse is an active band on their own as well. Next we have Elliot Easton and the album Change, No Change from 1985. Lead guitarist with the Cars, and he did sing. The cool thing about this album is it is the lone solo album from him, but this one here features the original 10 tracks of this album, but it also features 5 bonus tracks from his unreleased second album that was to be called Band of Angels. And it's the lineup that I really was interested on for that, which has, of course, Elliot Easton on guitars, but Benmont Tench on keyboards and Stan Lynch on drums, both from Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and also Danny Malone on vocals. So he attempted to form a group and take it in that direction, and just some really good backing people, but I wish they would get the rights to the whole album and do it that way, get a proper release out of that. Okay, next up, Bobby Keys, 1972, and this is one I never would have checked out had it not been for the reissue of this, and of course knowing who it is and the guest, which is, this is a famous sideman from the Rolling Stones, saxophonist, and the album itself is very sort of funky blues rock style like the Rolling Stones. So if you like early Rolling Stones, you're going to like this here. And it was the guest list on this that really put it over the top for me and made me choose this. So, I mean, listen to who plays on this. We got George Harrison on guitars, Ringo Starr on drums. You got 2 Beatles there. You got the whole band of Mountain. You've got Leslie West on guitars, Felix Pappalardi on bass, and Corky Lang on drums. Nicky Hopkins on piano, and he's another side man or session man for the Rolling Stones. Jack Bruce on bass and Dave Mason on guitars, and there's a whole host of other ones. So really, really solid, great album, start to finish. No vocals on it, it's all instrumental, but I highly recommend it. Just really, really good stuff. Next, we've got the band Prophet and Cycle of the Moon, 1988. This one here is a band from New Jersey featuring Russell Okara on vocals, and he'd go on to front some other bands, including having a namesake band just called Okara, which is actually where I knew him from. I think that was in the late 90s. But what was also of note about the band Prophet was in 1985 it featured Ted Poley from Danger Danger, of course, before he would join them. So kind of gives you an idea about the style of this. Sort of late 80s melodic rock with a bit of hairband or glam metal style to it, but more 80s melodic hard rock sort of stuff. Now this next one, the namesake of this is a more famous person, but these albums are pretty hard to come by. So Greg Raleigh, 1985 self-titled album, and its follow-up, Gringo, which came out in 1987. 2 really fantastic albums by the Journey and Santana keyboard and vocalist. So, I mean, he sang and played keyboards for both of those groups. And the guests that are on these albums here are pretty good, too. You've got Carlos Santana joining, Neil Schon from Journey, Peter Wolf from Jay Giles Band, and Craig Chiquiko from Jefferson Starship. So some really good backing members, and this is what you'd expect right out of the 80s from somebody that had played with Santana and Journey. Just good stuff. So we've got the final one here that I want to show you guys. Again, a big name, but again, hard to get album. Joe Lynn Turner released me 1985, a debut solo album by him. And so former vocalist with, listen to all of these groups here, Fandango, which I pointed out at the beginning of this, Rainbow, Yngwie Malmsteen, Deep Purple, Mother's Army, Rated X, and of course Sunstorm, which he has been in and done the last 5 albums with, although he's no longer with that group. Ronnie Romero, another Rainbow vocalist, has taken that over. But Joe Lynn Turner's had such an amazing career, both in bands and out of bands solo. This album here, the reason that I was drawn to this more than just it being a Joe Lynn Turner solo album was the backing band on this. We got Alan Greenwood on keyboards from Foreigner, Chuck Berge on drums from Rainbow, and Bobby Mazzano on guitars from Stars. So just a really stellar lineup of these 4 guys playing on this album, and the music's just outstanding in my opinion. Of course, it's early mid 80s, rock, melodic rock, but it's just really, really great stuff with keyboards from Alan Greenwood on it. So there you go, 10 really good, rare and hard to find Wounded Bird reissue albums as part of my CD collection. This was a special edition for that. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts if you have a special one or you've got one. I've probably got it in my box of 77 here, but let me know nonetheless. Hope you guys have a great day. I'll talk to you all real soon. Take care. Bye-bye.